Next, question number 34. So what they have given in question number 34, let me write. T is a simple closed curve in the complex plane. Okay, so T is nothing but closed curve. Okay, so this is T, and they have given integral over this curve dz z1 minus z square. Okay, and they are asking about the value of this integral. Before we start solving this question, let me recall few facts. So residue at pole, suppose A is my pole. So what is the formula for residue? Limit z tends to a, z minus a fz. Okay, so this is the formula for residue at simple pole. Let me recall one more thing, the Cauchy residue theorem. So what it says, suppose I have few poles in of the function f of z inside this T, then how to find out integral fz? So this is nothing but 2 pi I into sum of the residue at its pole which lies inside this C. Okay, so by using these two facts we are going to solve this question. Let's observe this. Dz is nothing but z 1 minus z and 1 plus z. Okay, let's try to find out residue at each pole. Now see, if we look at all the poles of the function f of z, so 0, 1 and minus 1 will be the poles of this fz. Okay, let's try to evaluate a residue at each pole. Suppose residue at 0 is means what? Limit z tends to 0, z minus 0 into this function fz, z 1 minus z 1 plus z. This z and z will cancel out. If I substitute z equals to 0 throughout, I am going to get 1 by 1 means what? 1. So residue at 0 is 1. If I substitute residue at 1, so let's try to find out z tends to 1, z minus 1, 1 by z1 minus z 1 plus z. So this z minus 1 and this is 1 minus z. So minus 1 upon z 1 plus z. If I substitute z equals to 1, I am going to get minus half. Similarly for residue at minus 1, I will get minus half. Up till now we have found out residue of fz at each pole. Now we will consider cases. Case number first, suppose my pole z equal to 0 lies inside and other poles lie outside this T. Z equal to 0 lies inside. So what will happen? Then integral fz will be equals to 2 pi I into residue at pole z equals to 0. Okay, so 2 pi I, what is the pole residue of at pole z equal to 0? Is nothing but 1. So answer is 2 pi I. If I change the orientation of this T, my answer will be minus 2 pi I. So answer can be plus 2 pi I or minus 2 pi I. Okay, and if you look at the options, B and C both have 2 pi I and minus 2 pi I. Okay, from this itself we can see B is true because in option C there is no minus 2 pi I. Okay, let's try to do one more case. Suppose z equals to 1 lies inside. What will happen? Integral fz will become 2 pi I times residue at z equals to 1. Now see, when I consider z equals to 1, in this case 0 and minus I will lie outside this case. Only z equals to 1 will lie inside this T. So what will be the answer for this case? 2 pi I times residue at 1. Residue at 1 we have found out, which is equals to minus half. If I cancel this 2 I will get minus pi I. So answer is getting minus pi I. If I interchange the orientation, I will get answer plus pi I. So answer plus pi I and minus pi I can also be possible. Now let's see case number 3rd. In case number 3rd, if I consider all the poles lies outside, then what will happen? By Cauchy-Goursat theorem, my function fz will, if all the poles of fz will lie outside this T, then my function fz will analytic inside this T. And if at all my function fz become analytic inside some disk, then my function becomes analytic over this. and integral by Cauchy-Gaussian theorem will become 0. By Cauchy-Gaussian theorem answer will become 0. So these are the possibilities for answer: 0, plus minus pi I, and plus minus 2 pi I. If I look at the options, option B will be correct option. Let's move ahead. Question number 35. What they are given in 35? They are given one series log n upon n square plus 1 z raised to n factorial. Okay, and they are asking about radius of convergence. So what is an in this case? Nth term of this sequence of this series is n square plus 1. Let's try to find out an by an plus 1. So it will be an by n plus 1 log n upon n square plus 1. This is nothing but our r. Okay, log n plus 1 to the whole square plus 1 divided by log n plus 1. Now see, this is quadratic, this is quadratic, so this will cancel in a way. Log n upon log n plus 1. If I substitute n equals to infinity, this is indeterminate form, so we have to take derivative by L'Hospital rule. So 1 by n upon 1 by n plus 1. So answer going to be 1 if I approach n towards infinity. So radius of convergence we are getting 1. But see, here we have n factorial, not n. If my mod z is 1, then mod z raised to n factorial is also going to be 1. So for radius of convergence of this series also 1. If you look at next problem, question number 36. What question number 36 says? They have given one PD x uxx plus y uyy equals to 0. You see how to approach this kind of question. They are asking about whether this PD is hyperbolic, elliptic. So how to approach? First we must know what is delta. Delta is nothing but s square minus 4 rt. R is nothing but coefficient of uxx, which is equals to x. S is nothing but coefficient of uxy, which is equals to 0, and t is nothing but coefficient of uyy, which is equals to y. And when do we say our given PD is elliptic? Whenever delta is negative, given PD become elliptic. Whenever delta is positive, given PD become hyperbolic. Whenever my delta is 0, my PD become parabolic. Okay, so you must remember this. If I consider delta for this case, s square minus 4rt become s is 0, minus 4 r is x, and t is our y. In first option they are saying if my x positive and y negative, then our PD is hyperbolic. Let's check whether it is hyperbolic or not. If my x is positive and y is negative, then their product is negative. If one number is positive and another number is negative, then their product will be negative. If I multiply 4 on both sides, still inequality won't change. But if I multiply by minus sign on both sides, I will get inequality will get reverse. Okay, and what is minus 4xy? Minus 4xy is nothing but our delta. So delta is positive means what? Whenever delta is positive, our PD become hyperbolic. So our given PD become hyperbolic. Is it the case? Yes. So option A is true. Let's do the next question. Question number 37. What it says: for positive real number, series a raised to ln of n is convergent if and only if they are given for inequalities, whether a is lied between 0 to e, 0 to less than equals to e. So let's try to do this. When do we say series is convergent? If my an plus 1 by an limit n tends to infinity is less than 1. This is by ratio test. There is one more case, limit n tends to infinity, supremum of an raised to 1 by n. If this is less than 1, then we say series is convergent. Okay, if both of this doesn't work, then we will go for logarithmic test and condensation test and all. Let's try to do by ratio test. If I apply ratio test, an plus 1 upon an, which will be a raised to ln of n plus 1 upon a raised to ln of n, which is nothing but ln of a raised to ln of n plus 1 minus n, is nothing but ln of n plus 1 by n. If I approach a limit as n tends to infinity, then I am going to get ln of 1 plus 1 by n. This is 0, and ln of 1 we will left with, and ln of 1 is nothing but 0, so a raised to 0 is 1. See, we are not getting any conclusion because an must be less than equals to 1 in order to this series conversion, but we are getting equals to 1. So what we'll do, we have to go for logarithmic test. So what is logarithmic test? Our series an is convergent whenever this series an is convergent if n ln of an upon an plus 1 is greater than 1. This is the logarithmic test. Let's try to do this. Limit as n approaches to infinity. So limit n tends to infinity. First let's try to calculate this term. See, we have already evaluated an upon an plus 1. So here we have evaluated an plus 1 upon an, but we want for logarithmic test an upon n plus 1. Let's revert this. So 1 upon a raised to ln upon 1 plus 1 by n. So this will go a raised to minus ln 1 plus 1 by n, or in other words this become 1 upon ln of 1 plus 1 by n. Okay, if I take ln or log on both side, okay, so I will get log of this. Now see, the log of 1 upon this means what? Log of 1 means 0 minus log of this, log of a raised to ln of 1 plus 1 by n. Okay, and we have to multiply this by n. Let's multiply n throughout. I will get minus n log of a raised to ln of 1 plus 1 by n. This n will go to the power of a. So I will have log of a n into ln of 1 plus 1 by n minus log a raised to ln of 1 plus 1 by n, and this n again will go to the power of 1 plus 1 by n. So this is nothing but n. If you look at carefully, what is the value of ln of 1 plus n raised to n? This is nothing but 1. So value of this log a raised to 1. Now they are saying, the logarithmic test says this is convergent only if this is greater than 1. And when do we say this is greater than 1? Only if log of a is, if I multiply minus sign throughout, is less than minus 1. If I take exponential function on either side, I will get a raised to log means what? A. Okay, I am using this property, e raised to log of a is nothing but a, and here we have e raised to minus 1. This is nothing but 1 by e, and they are already saying our a is what? Greater than 0, and also we have found out a is strictly less than 1 by e. If I look at the options, my option C will be correct. Next is question number 38. So what they are saying in question number 38, the roots of this equation x e raised to x equals to 1 between 0 and 1 obtained by bisection. If you know what is bisection method, this is the formula. Let me show this. If sine of x1, and suppose this is my x1 and x2, if suppose image for the function at x1 is f of x1 negative, and image for x2 will be f of x2, then, and suppose my function is continuous, then my function intersect x-axis at least 1. Means what? If my images at two distinct points are differ by sign, then there exists at least one root between both the points. Okay, so this is the idea of bisection method. So if I try to construct this in terms of function, my fx will be x e raised to x and minus 1 equals to 0. Okay. Let's try to find out image at both the points 0 and 1. F of 0 will be minus 1, which is negative, and f of 1 will be e raised to 1 minus 1. If you look at the values of e, which is nothing but 2.3 something, so it's going to be positive. For 0 I'm getting negative value, and for 1 I'm getting positive value. Means what? There exists at least one root between 0 and 1. Okay, means what? By bisection method, our x2 become x0 plus x1 by 2, means 0 plus 1 by 2, which is equal to 0.5. Means what? There must be one root which is approximated by 0.5. Now again, if I try to find out value of f of x at 0.5, I am going to get 0.5 e raised to 0.5 minus 1. Now see, this is nothing but our e raised to 0.5 means what? 1 by 2, which is nothing but root of e divided by 2 minus 1. Now let's look at carefully. This root e by 2 will always be less than 1. How I can show this is less than 1? Suppose root e by 2 is greater than 1, then what will happen? Root e will be greater than 2. If I square on both sides, I will get e is greater than 4. Is it value of e is greater than 4? Obviously not, because e is nothing but 2.3 something, and which cannot be greater than 4. So root e by 2 cannot be greater than 4, means what? It has to be less than 1. So if it is less than 1, and if I subtract any minus 1 from a value which is less than 1, I am going to get a negative value. Okay, so at 0.5 I am going to get negative value. Okay, here something, and for 1 we have already found that my image at 1 is positive, means what? There exists at least one root of this function fx. Now see why function is continuous, because clearly by function itself we can say this is exponential function and some polynomial, so I'm going to get a continuous function. So this function is continuous means what? It will intersect x-axis at least once. So let's say this our next root is x3. So what will be our x3? X3 is nothing but x2 plus x1 by 2. What is my x2? X2 we already found out 0.5, plus what is x1? X1 is nothing but 1 divided by 2. So this is 1.5 by 2 and 0.75. If I try to find out next root x4, you will get something x 0.756 or something. Okay, which will approximately equals to 0.75. So by looking at the options, you can say that option C is correct. Next question number 39. What they're saying, root I plus minus root I. They're asking about value of this. So how to find out value of root I plus minus I? Suppose my value of root I is some omega. Then what will happen? My I will be equals to omega square. What is my I? I is nothing but cos pi by 2 plus I time sin pi by 2. Okay, then we can go for De Moivre's theorem. If I take 2 to that side, it will become cos pi by 2 plus I sin pi by 2 raised to what? 1 by 2. If I apply De Moivre's theorem, I will get cos pi by 2 by 2 means what? Pi by 4. I sin pi by 2 by 2 means what? Pi by 4. Okay, this is nothing but 1 by root 2. This is also 1 by root 2. So 1 plus I root. Similarly, if I try to find out let's say root minus I, suppose this is my omega 2, then my minus I will become omega 2 square. Okay, but see what is my minus I? Minus I is nothing but cos pi by 2 minus I time sin pi by 2. If I take this 2 to this side, cos pi by 2 minus I times sin pi by 2 raised to again 1 by 2. This is nothing but minus I again cos pi by 4 minus I times sin pi by 4. This is nothing but our 1 minus I by root 2. So we have found out value of I, which is equals to this, and we also find out value of minus I, which is equals to this. Let's add both of them. If I add value of I and root I, and so we have found out value of omega I square, which is nothing but omega I square means what? Omega 1. So we have found out value of root I, which is equals to omega 1. We have got this, and we also got value of omega 2, which is nothing but root I, which is equals to 1 minus root. Let's try to add this both the value root I and minus root I, which is equals to 1 plus I by root 2 plus 1 minus I by root 2. This I by root 2 and minus I by root 2 will get cancelled. We will left with 1 by root 2 plus 1 by root 2 means what? 2 by root 2, which is nothing but root 2. Okay, in question number 40 they are saying fz is some complicated polynomial 10 plus I z raised to 100 minus 100I 2 plus 3I z raised to 15 minus 1, and see the any closed curve enclosing all the zeros of f. This is very important. And C is a curve such that all which contains all the zeros, means what? All the roots of fz. Okay, so C is some contour where contains all the roots of fz lies. Okay, now they are asking about this integral f dash z upon fz dz. So what comes to your mind as soon as you see this equation, f dash z by fz, integral of that? So obviously only one theorem comes to your mind, and what is that theorem? That is nothing but argument principle. And what it says, integral of f dash z by fz equals to 2 pi I into number of zeros minus number of poles. Okay, now see, this fz cannot have any poles because this is not a rational function. So this fz will have only zeros. And how many zeros this fz will have? Obviously 100 zero, because polynomial have a number of 0 equals to degree of that polynomial. So this fz will have 100 zeros and 0 poles. So this is nothing but 200 pi I. So integral of this will be 200 pi I. If I look at the options, option C will be correct.